Hello boaters, welcome to Narrowboat Journeys. We're on the North Oxford Canal and just approaching the Hillmorton lock flight. This is claimed to be the busiest lock flight in the whole country. It's quite unusual because there's only 3 locks, but each lock is actually a pair of locks. So you have 2 narrow locks side by side and you can choose which one you go in. This makes things a bit faster and easier. Although when you're approaching a lock from above, you can't really see if the lock is full or empty until you're right there. Also with this lock flight is that there's usually volunteer lock keepers here to help you through, although I'm so early in the year they won't be here today. So I think the best thing to do is I'll show you this first lock quite slowly, and then for the next 2 locks we'll speed up the video a bit, and I'll also edit out any bits where I'm just sort of sitting around waiting for things to happen. So since this lock is not quite full, I've got to let some water in to fill it up before I can open the gate. So now the lock is full, I'm lowering the offside paddle, cross over the gate, and I open the gate before I lower the other paddle. That's because if the lock leaks then I won't be able to get the gate open, so we leave that paddle open just until I've got the gate open. And now I can close it down and take the boat in. Now here's a thing to watch out for when doing locks. A lot of people use long-handled windlasses because they make the winding of the paddle mechanism up much easier. But I find that the long-handled windlasses don't always work on every lock. Sometimes they're too long and the lock beam will get in the way. So if you have a long-handled windlass, it's very advisable to have a short-handled one as well. As I found out in this particular lock, my red windlass is the long-handled variety. I put it on and the beam gets in the way, so I had to go and get my other one. And since every lock is different, you might find that you go through a whole flight of locks and your long-handled windlass will be fine, and then suddenly you'll come to a next lock and then you'll need the short one. They're all different. So back with the short-handled windlass and up it goes. These particular lock mechanisms they're geared and they're very easy to operate, so a short-handled windlass is not difficult to use. So open the gate, and now I jump across the gates on narrow locks. If you don't want to do that, of course, the safest way is to walk around and cross at the top gate. And it's just a case of lowering the paddle. In this case I took the boat out by dragging it on a rope. It's sometimes easier when you're on your own. And of course we always lower paddles and close gates when we leave, unless there's another boat about to come in which case it's downright rude to close the lock gate in front of them. And on we go to the next lock. They're just a short distance apart in this flight and you can't really moor up in between them. So here we are at the middle lock, and for the next two we'll speed up the action a bit just to keep things moving. Now, there are some boaters facilities on the Hillmorton lock flight, but they're quite strangely placed. There's an Elsan point and a rubbish disposal point to the right of this bridge. However, it's very difficult to moor up here, especially when it's busy. So ideally, moor at the top or the bottom of the flight and bring the Elsan or the rubbish up on a trolley if you've got one. But it is possible to moor here, it's just not convenient. There's my trolley. Now the Elsan place is right beside the bridge, and I don't think you needed a key to get in here actually, but it's best to have it with you just in case. And there it is. It wasn't locked up, so now the rubbish is in the car park round the back. There are some signposts pointing you towards it. And here we go, carrying on now towards the third and final lock, and below which there is water points, which I'll show you in a moment. So below the lock here is a waiting area where boats can queue up for the locks if necessary. Shortly after this, here in this wide section, is a winding hole. And those boats on the left there, they're long-term moorings. And the water point is just after those. So here's the winding hole. And there are two water points just here. I'm stopping briefly to fill up with water before I continue, although I'm not actually going very far today. As soon as I've got the water, I'm just going to nip around to the other side of that moored boat and moor up on the visitor moorings. And that's the end of the trip for today. Unfortunately, the visitor moorings on this bit are those nasty sloping diagonal stones which scrape the side of your boat, but it'll do for now. There are mooring rings in the ground, so you can tie on to those. In the next trip we shall carry on just a little bit further. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. And now it's just time to let the cats out before I go. Oh, just one more thing. If you want to moor up on some nice friendly metal piling, just carry on a little bit further from where I am now, and there are some just around the corner.